I feel so well rested right now. I feel like I haven't slept through the night in like months. And it's probably only been like two or 3 weeks, which is still a long time. If it's growing eye teeth is no joke. But we seem to finally be over that hump. So I'm sleeping through the night. I got up early. I got all ready. I got a new package to like go through of like makeup things. Very excited. Let's get into this. Hello everyone, I am back for another buy or buy. And today we're going to be testing out the brand new, just released Urban Decay Naked Heat collection. For those of you that are new to my buy or buys, typically I will do them around total brands and I will review what I like and what I dislike, or new collection launches, things like that. And I rate everything on an emoji scale out of 5. So 5 particular emojis as it relates to whatever it is that I'm testing, or most of the time it's just random because I don't think to, you know, create these things in advance. And the emoji I think I want to use today is the flame. It just makes sense. Naked heat, flame, I don't know. So 5 flames out of 5, think like a really good bonfire. You know where you throw the match into the bonfire and it's like and then 1 flame out of 5 is gonna be like, I don't know, like an on-fire garbage can. That's pretty bad. Because there's nothing worse than smelly, disgusting trash that has also burst into flames. If you guys want to see more of my buy or buys, I will link a full like playlist in the card section for you guys in case you are interested. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on new videos every Tuesday and Thursday. And without further ado, let's get into this. So first of all, let's open up this package. If I can open it up. So much for a dramatic open, Rachel. Aww. Like opening a pizza box. Inside we have a new addition to the Naked eyeshadow palette family. We have 2 eyeliners within their 24/7 eyeliner collection, and then 3 new lipsticks. These are all within this new sort of amber, russet, warm tone brown range of shades, and everyone is going ballistic over this. First, let's start with the eyeshadow palette, and it says here that these are 12 all new, can't live without amber hued neutrals. We have burnt oranges, warm browns, that kind of thing, the terracotta, warm shades kind of family. It's going to retail for $54 US, and it is a permanent addition to their collection. Their 2 eyeliner pencils are going to retail for $20 US. They are a permanent part of their collection, and one of them is this sort of like a nice sienna shade, and this one is like a deep wine shade. And then we have their 3 lipsticks. These are the only parts of the collection that are limited edition. This is part of their Vice lipsticks collection. These are going to retail for $17 US. They all have that warm tone to them again. There are 2 metallicized ones and 1 cream. So let's open these things up. So these are the shades that we have here. This is very classic Urban Decay with the wide range of neutrals. We have some more shimmery metallicized shades as well as some matte shades. So we have all of the swatches on my hand here, and I'm doing them in the order in which they appear on the palette. And you can see there are some that swatch a lot better than others. You know, the metallic ones clearly win this whole game. There were some here that were no joke when I swatched them. They were incredible. One being Scorched. It was incredible, just like smooth like butter, kind of putting it on the skin. Oh, it's beautiful. And then the other one right beside it is Dirty Talk, another gorgeous shade. Then some of these darker matte shades in here. So we have Cayenne on Fuego, I wanna say, and Ashes. Did not swatch well at all. They were very just dusty and didn't show up well on my arm in the slightest. Now I'm gonna swatch these 2 eyeliners. So the first one is in the shade Torch, which is sort of like a burnt orange shade. It's a bit of a metallic undertone to it, which is pretty. It feels a little bit warm for me personally, but it's not a bad shade. It's very creamy when applied. And then this one is Alkaline, which is that nice wine shade. That's a lot lighter than I was expecting, actually. That one feels almost a little bit pinky. I was kind of hoping that would be a lot darker than it is. But I guess you kind of want it to show up as more of a berry tone. I'll still play around with it and see, but I wasn't as impressed with that one. And then the 3 lipsticks, we have Scorched, which is metallicized, Fuel, which is cream, and Heat, which is also metallicized. So we will swatch all these ones. So this one right here is Scorched. It's very creamy. It has that metallicized sort of a finish to it. It is very brown toned. I feel like this is not going to be a color necessarily that's going to look good on my skin tone, but it's not bad in any way in terms of the product itself. And then we are going to try Fuel here. That one has more of a pinky undertone. I feel like that one is going to be more flattering on my skin tone. I like the fact that it's going to be a little bit more wearable versus a metallic one. And then we have Heat, which is this darker shade, metallic again. Oh, I thought this was gonna be a lot darker than it ended up showing up on my skin. That almost has this pinky tone to it. It's not as I don't know, pigmented as I was kind of expecting it to be, and that might be the fact that it's metallicized, which is giving it some reflect, but I don't know. I'm not as impressed with that one. So I think my favorite is actually the cream of all of these shades, so that's probably the one I'm going to be applying to my lips today. So now we have all of the swatches all kind of over myself. You know what, I'm gonna remove these. This is too much. I'm gonna get it everywhere. And then we're going to zoom in and apply some things to my face. Okay, so for this look, I'm going to start with this lightest shade here. This is Chaser. And I'm gonna be using this giant brush, which is not technically actually an eyeshadow brush, but I like using it for these giant crease colors. By the way, I've already primed my eyes. I've set it with powder, just letting y'all know. And we're just gonna be applying this just to the crease area to give it a little bit of dimension before we go in with our darker shades. And I'm going to take a sauce right here and a smaller fluffy brush, and I'm going to apply that again to the crease to deepen a little bit. So far so good. They are applying quite well, nice and smooth. So far, so good. Now I'm gonna go in with this dark shade Cayenne here, and I'm gonna apply that to the crease and a little bit into sort of like the outer V. It's picking up really nicely on this brush, actually. Oh, look at that. Look how pigmented that is. Whoa. Oh my goodness, please blend out. I'm just gonna take a clean, fluffy brush and sort of smoke out the edges a bit. Really want to take this Scorch shade and apply that to the lid because it is beautiful. I really liked it. I liked the way that it applied. I first applied it just dry with a brush, and I think it did a really good job really showing off that metallic look. And then I just blended it out into the crease a little bit, and I went in with En Fuego, I believe it is called, that kind of a warm burgundy shade, and applied that just a little bit along the outer waterline and in a bit into the crease, just to add that sort of a warm berry tone to it. For underneath the lash line, to kind of smoke it out a bit, I started with Sauced and applied it all the way along, and then I took En Fuego and I applied that just to the outer third of the lower lash line and just kind of create a little bit more dimension, and I used a really thin flat tip brush for that. Then of course add a mascara before continuing on with this look. The inner corners of the eyes I use Ounce, and to be honest I just wasn't that impressed with it. I found it to be light in terms of coverage, and even trying to build it up, I just didn't notice that nice sparkle in the inner corner of the eyes. I tried it underneath the brow bone, same sort of thing. I just found that it didn't really show up really well on my skin tone. The liner, I just applied it to the tight line, which really doesn't showcase how it's gonna really look, so I totally recognize that. And then lastly, for the lipstick, I decided to go with Fuel, which is that cream shade. And this is, in terms of the quality of the lipstick, a very good quality lipstick. I think it's very creamy and goes along with the whole Vice line. I think they are beautiful lipsticks. This shade in particular is a little bit too brown and warm tone for myself, but for the look it did end up working quite well. And here you have the final look that I came up with using this collection, and now I kind of want to sit down and give you guys my overall ratings for what I have tried today. So first, let's start with the liners. These are two liners. They are a permanent addition to the collection, and in terms of the colors and the usability for myself, I just didn't see it. I think this color, it just wasn't, like, in terms of the quality of it and the wear of it, I just did not like it. This one, I found that it was much creamier and it applied a lot easier, but I found that it just isn't a color that I'm going to be reaching for. So for me, I'm gonna give this 2 flames out of 5. I just, in terms of the overall quality, the wearability for myself and things like that, I just didn't find them to be super wearable. It's like when you have those matches and you keep trying to light it and you keep burning yourself and you're like, oh, nope, there it doesn't work. Oh, nope, that doesn't work. It's not on fire garbage can though, so that's good. Then on to the lipsticks. These are limited edition options that you can choose from. I would say in terms of the quality, they're great. I think that the quality is definitely there for these, at least for Scorched and Fuel. I found that these ones were very nice. In terms of the color, the warm undertones, it's not something I am going to be personally reaching for very often. It just doesn't work really well for my skin tone, to be honest. The Heat shade, I just didn't like it. I wasn't super wowed by it. I found it to be kind of weak, I guess is the best way I can describe it. It just didn't feel like it was really adding to that whole like heat element of the collection. It just felt lacking. So for these lipsticks, for me, in terms of the quality, I would say 3.5 flames out of 5. You know, it's like a pretty good bonfire. It's not the greatest, and it took you a while to get there, but for the most part, it's doing a good job providing heat. In terms of usability for myself, I honestly don't see myself reaching for these that often. Unless I'm wearing a tan, these colors are just not going to do it for me. That's the way it goes. There are going to be other skin tones out there that are going to be suited to this a lot better than myself, but in terms of quality, I think it's there. And then lastly, the eyeshadow palette. So this one is tricky for me because I want to start out by saying that these aren't colors that I necessarily would typically gravitate towards. I am much more comfortable in sort of the cooler toned eyeshadow. So I want to state that from the get-go. These are shades that I wouldn't typically go for. So I kind of want to start with like the quality of them. So when I was applying them to the eyes, I found them to apply well. I found that they were pigmented when I was applying them. They blended out fairly well, and I found them to be easy enough to work with when I was applying them to the eyes. I really love this Scorched shade. This is something that I haven't seen in a lot of palettes, and I found that one to be very interesting and different, and I really liked it. It has that nice burgundy-ness to it. It has that nice metallicness to it. I love that there are no glitters in this palette. There are metallics and there are mattes, and that's it, so that's great. I would say I wasn't super impressed with this highlight shade. It just wasn't highlighty enough for me, and that seems to be a trend with all of the Naked palettes. I just didn't see it. And then these shades down here, while they did go onto the eyes, when I swatched them, they just were very chalky. They did not apply very well, and they sort of were just dragging across the skin, which is kind of disappointing. If you are looking for something that is a good everyday, nice warm terracotta shades, honestly, I just don't think that you're really going to get a lot of use out of this. There are some shades here which are great, but a lot of these shades are much more for a more dramatic look, and I feel like for $66 Canadian or $54 US, like, you're not getting a lot of use out of this palette. However, if you are a collector, if you enjoy the Naked palettes, if you want those nice warm terracotta shades and you haven't really invested in a palette that has done that yet, it's a good one to play around with. I really like some of these metallic shades. I think that some of these shades right here actually worked quite well on my eyes. I was very impressed with the color payoff when I applied them. So that's really nice and great to see, but these darker colors just didn't do it for me. And then in terms of similarities within my collection, I looked for drugstore options, but again, it was kind of hard to do that well, because most of the eyeshadows that I have are more in the cooler tones, the gold tones, the blush tones. I did have the Sweet Peach palette though, and there are some similarities between these two palettes. Not identical, there are a lot of like more interesting little pops of color in the Sweet Peach palette, but I would say some of these shades in here, like Summer Yum and Puree, are similar to the shades that are in this palette. Not all of them are identical, but there are some that sort of transition between the two. So I think overall for this palette, I'm going to give it 3 flames out of 5, like a good solid average palette. I have never been one to be super excited about the Naked palettes. I think they're fine and they're good. It's just they're not my favorites, you know? I do really like the Ultimate Naked Basics palette though. That is a really good one. If you're looking for a good everyday one, that one is gorgeous. It's much more in like the cooler tones, but anyway, I'm getting off track. I think it's a pretty palette. I think it'll look good on a lot of different skin tones. Mine is not my favorite, but it's not a bad palette either. So that's kind of where I'm sitting with that. I will continue to play around with it. Is it going to be an everyday staple of mine though? Probably not. And that's everything for this video. Give it a thumbs up if you like a buy or buy type videos and you want to see more of them in the future. If you have any requests for future ones, leave them in the comment section below. I would love to hear from you guys, and that is everything. I hope you're having a wonderful, wonderful day so far, and I will see you guys all in my next video. Love you girls. Mwah.